Hello.
Hello.
Let's talk about job interviews.
I feel like they're quite scary, to be fair.
Certainly when I was younger, I found interviews quite daunting, and I found it was quite a formal setting that I was quite uncomfortable in.
Hi, my name is Omer. I am currently a software engineering apprentice. I was being really robotic and I was being really monotone.
Is this actually me talking and I'm just going on and on and on? I call it the awkward interview ramble where you just can't stop.
There was periods where I kind of froze. I didn't know what to say.
Some people just aren't that great at talking. You know, some people just don't have a great way with words. And so I find job interviews extremely tough and sort of hard to find peace with.
I feel like interviews are taken and maybe even conducted just too seriously sometimes, and we potentially approach that with the wrong mindset. I would much rather see an interview as a conversation between two people as opposed to this power hierarchy that sometimes happens where you feel inferior.
One thing that my mum's always said to me about job interviews is it's just as much about you finding out if you want that job as much as of them figuring out if they want to take you on for that role.
You're asking questions and gaining an understanding in terms of what the role is about, who the people are, whether you could fit within the culture of the business. Lots of these different things that you are also assessing. If you approach it from that perspective, it becomes a little bit more easier to manage for yourself.
Cracking the codes to interviews. I don't think I'm a master of interviews, but I do think I can conduct interviews really well. And that's simply down to my preparation. My teacher would actually sit me down at a table. She'd sit in front of me like an interviewer would do, and she'd ask me the questions whilst actually recording me on an iPad. That way I was able to look back and see where I was going wrong or where I could improve in my interview technique.
Practice, because the more you practice, the harder it is to get it wrong on the day.
If you want to do that in front of the mirror to yourself or maybe to a family or friend, if you really want to sort of mimic what the real life experience is going to be like.
Preparation creates confidence, and then confidence allows you to sell yourself in an interview. And a great way to prepare is analysing the job description, understanding what are the key skills that are going to be required from me, and then building out specific answers in something called the STAR method. Situation, task, action, result.
And it's a way of structuring an answer to an interview question to make sure you're able to get across the situation that you found yourself in, the task you were asked to do, the way you approach that task, and then the result that you achieved.
A quick exercise you can do is find the job description, copy and paste the key skills into a Word document, highlight the key skills that are required, and then start building out answers based on your experience using the STAR method. If you can build them out in a concise way related to the key skills in the job description, that's going to help you potentially predict the questions that are going to come up.
With online interviews, especially when everyone's on mute, it's easy to go on and on and on and on.
Make sure that you keep your answers short and to the point, but not so short that you don't get the message across.
Another great way to prepare for interviews is to research. Research really does help you when it comes to showing your motivation to join the company, which is a really key thing an employer is looking for.
There's the obvious things that you can do. You can look at their website, you can look at the About Us section or something like that.
You can look at their corporate social responsibility. You can see which charities they support. And then you can take that to social media and you can see what sort of social posts they're creating, what campaigns they're running. But if you've got a lot of different research to back up your ideas and your thoughts, that's going to really help you stand out. And it will also help you when it comes to asking the right questions in an interview as well.
One of the questions that comes across quite often in interviews is talking about strengths and weaknesses. And what you want to do here is you want to really talk about your strengths that's going to equip yourself well for the role, and maybe talk about a weakness that might not be required for that particular role you've applied for. An example for this would be is that if you're applying for a sales role, you want to talk about your communication and collaboration with others and how you can build relationships. And for your weakness, you may want to talk about that you're not the best at using Excel, because it's not actually that quite important for the role.
When you're talking about your weaknesses, always look like you're on the path to make those weaknesses stronger.
I think one of the biggest mistakes I made is I tried to present myself as the person that they were looking for and not as myself. I was effectively going in there and acting. In many cases, they could just see through me. As I grew in experience and confidence, I realised that just to be myself and just to give honest answers was enough. In most cases, a business is hiring the person, they're looking for an attitude, they're looking for a person that they can invest into. So being authentic and being honest really is your best opportunity to demonstrate that you're someone that they'd like to work with.
I think one of the best ways to go into an interview not stressed is to maybe make like a little checklist for yourself beforehand.
1, research the company. 2, prepare some answers. 3, reach out to current employees on LinkedIn to seek out some interview advice. And 4, rehearse, rehearse, rehearse.
So if you do all those steps and you become fully prepared, you walk into that interview with confidence, with your head held high, knowing that you've done your absolute best that you can do to that point. So it will help you relieve anxiety and stress that you might feel if you didn't do that. And even if you don't get the job, you know full well you've put 100% into it, and you take that as a learning opportunity.
So make sure you give yourself plenty of time so that you're not rushed or your mind isn't elsewhere when you enter the interview. And remember, be yourself.